This is October 14th, 2023. I am reading from Volume 2, starting on page 83. After some other discourse, I went aside with Justice Marsh into another room to speak with him concerning friends, for he was a justice of peace for Middlesex, and being a courtier, the other justices put much of the management of affairs upon him. He told me he was in a strait how to act between us and some other dissenters. For, said he, you cannot swear, and the Independents, Baptists, and Fifth Monarchy people say also they cannot swear. Therefore, said he, how shall I know how to distinguish betwixt you and them, seeing they and you all say it is for conscience sake that you cannot swear? I answered, I will show thee how to distinguish. They, or most of them thou speakest of, can and do swear in some cases, but we cannot swear in any case. If a man should steal their cows and horses, and thou shouldst ask them whether they would swear they were theirs, many of them would readily do it. But if thou try our friends, they cannot swear for their own goods. Therefore, when thou puttest the oath of allegiance to any of them, ask them whether they can swear in any other case, as for their cow or horse, which if they be really of us, they cannot do, though they can bear witness to the truth. I gave him a relation of a trial in Berkshire, which was thus. A thief stole 2 beasts from a friend of ours. The thief was taken and cast into prison, and the friend appeared against him at the assizes. But somebody, having informed the judge that the prosecutor was a Quaker and could not swear, the judge, before he heard the friend, said, Is he a Quaker, and will he not swear? Then tender him the oath of allegiance and supremacy. So he cast the friend into prison and praemunired him, and let the thief go at liberty. Justice Marsh said, That judge was a wicked man. But, said I, if we could swear in any case, we would take the oath of allegiance to the king, who is to preserve the laws that are to support every man in his estate. Whereas others that can swear in some cases to preserve a part of their estates, if they be robbed, will not take this oath to the king, who is to preserve them in their whole estates and bodies also, so that thou mayest easily distinguish and put a difference betwixt us and these people. Justice Marsh was afterwards very serviceable to friends in this and other cases, for he kept several, both friends and others, from being praemunired, and when friends were brought before him in time of persecution, he set many of them at liberty. When he could not avoid sending to prison, he sent some for a few hours or a night. At length he went to the king and told him he had sent some of us to prison contrary to his own conscience, and he could not do so any more. Therefore he removed his family from Limehouse, where he lived, and took lodgings near James's Park. He told the king if he would be pleased to give liberty of conscience, that would quiet and settle all. For then none could have any pretense to be uneasy. And indeed he was a very serviceable man to truth and friends in his day. We had great service at London this year. The Lord's truth came over all. Many who had been out from the truth came in again this year, confessing and condemning their outgoings. After I had stayed some time in London, I visited friends in Surrey, Sussex, and other places that way, and then traveled northward, having Leonard Fell with me. We visited friends till we came to Warwick, where many were in prison. We had a meeting in the town. I passed from thence to Birmingham and Bagley. At Bagley I had a large meeting, after which I passed through the country visiting friends till I came to Nottingham, where on the first day we had a precious meeting, but not without danger of being apprehended, the constables having threatened friends. I passed from thence, visiting friends, till I came to Balby, and so to York quarterly meeting. A blessed meeting we had. Friends had in Yorkshire 7 monthly meetings before, and they were so sensible of the service of them that they desired to have 7 more added to them, for the truth was much spread in that county. Accordingly, in that quarterly meeting, they were settled and established, so now they have 14 monthly meetings in that county. It being the assize time at York, I met with Justice Hotham, a well-wisher to friends who had been tender and very kind to me at the first. After I had finished my service for the Lord in York, I passed into the country. As I went, a great burden fell upon me, but I did not presently know the reason of it. I came to a meeting on first day at Richard Shipton's, which was very large. There being a meeting the same day at another place, and the priest of that place being misinformed that I was to be there, got a warrant, and made a great disturbance at that meeting, of which Isaac Lindley gave me an account by the following letter. G.F. When thou wentest from York, the first day after thou wast at Richard Shipton's, that day I had appointed a meeting about 10 miles from York, where there had not been a meeting before. But the priest and the constable got a warrant on the 7th day, and put thy name only in the warrant, for they had heard thou wast to be there. They came with weapons and staves, and cried, Where is Mr. Fox? Over and over. Many friends being there, they concluded thou wast amongst them. But those raveners, being disappointed, plucked me down, and abused me, and beat some friends, and then took me before a magistrate, but he set me at liberty. I then visited friends at Whitby and Scarborough. When I was at Scarborough, the governor, hearing I was come, sent to invite me to his house, saying, Surely I would not be so unkind as not to come and see him and his wife. After the meeting I went to visit him, and he received me very courteously and lovingly. Having visited most of the meetings in Yorkshire, the Wolds and Holderness, I came to Henry Jackson's, where I had a great meeting. From thence to Thomas Taylor's, and to John Moore's at Eldrith, where we had a very large meeting. The Lord's power and presence was eminently amongst us. Not far from this place lay Colonel Kirby, lame of the gout, who had threatened if ever I came near he would send me to prison again, and had bid £40 to any man that would take me, as I was credibly informed. After this meeting I passed through the country till I came to Staffordshire and Cheshire, where we had many large and precious meetings. I had a very large one at William Barnes, about 2 miles from Warrington, and though Colonel Kirby was now got abroad again, as violent in breaking up meetings as before, and was then at Warrington, the Lord did not suffer him to come to this meeting, so we were preserved out of his hands. Now was I moved of the Lord to go over into Ireland to visit the seed of God in that nation. There went with me Robert Lodge, James Lancaster, Thomas Briggs, and John Stubbs. We waited near Liverpool for shipping and wind. After we had waited some days, we sent James Lancaster, who took passage, and brought word the ship was ready and would take us in at Blackrock. We went thither on foot. It being pretty far and the weather very hot, I was much spent with walking. When we arrived, the ship was not there, so we were obliged to go to the town and take shipping there. When we got on board, I said to the rest of the company, Come, you will triumph in the Lord, for we shall have fair wind and weather. There were many passengers in that ship sick, but not one of our company was sick. The master and many of the passengers were very loving, and being at sea on the first day, I was moved to declare truth among them. Whereupon the master said to the passengers, Come, here are things that you've never heard in your lives. When we came before Dublin, we took boat and went ashore, and the earth and air smelt, methought, with the corruption of the nation, so that it yielded another smell to me than England did, which I imputed to the corruption and popish massacres that had been committed, and the blood that had been spilt in it, from which a foulness ascended. We passed through among the officers of the customs 4 times, yet they did not search us, for they perceived what we were. Some of them were so envious they did not care to look at us. We did not presently find friends, but went to an inn and sent to inquire for some, who were exceeding glad of our coming and received us with great joy. We stayed there the weekly meeting, which was a large one, and the power and life of God appeared greatly in it. Afterwards we passed to a province meeting, which lasted 2 days, there being both a men's meeting about the poor, and another more general, in which a mighty power of the Lord appeared. Truth was livingly declared, and friends were much refreshed therein. Passing from thence about 24 miles, we came to another place, where we had a very good refreshing meeting, after which some papists were angry and raged very much. When I heard of it, I sent for one of them, a schoolmaster, but he would not come. Whereupon I sent a challenge to them, with all the friars, monks, priests, and Jesuits, to come forth and try their God and their Christ, which they made of bread and wine. But no answer could I get from them. Wherefore I told them they were worse than the priests of Baal, for Baal's priests tried their wooden god, and these durst not try their God of bread and wine. And Baal's priests and people did not eat their God as these did, and then make another. We went on to New Garden, where there was a great meeting. From thence we traveled on among friends till we came to Bandon Bridge and the Land's End, having many meetings as we went, in which the mighty power of the Lord was manifested. Friends were well refreshed, and many people were affected with the truth. At Bandon, the mayor's wife, being convinced, desired her husband to come to the meeting, but he bid her for her life she should not make known that I was at a meeting there. He that was then mayor of Cork, being very envious against truth and friends, had many friends in prison, and knowing I was in the country, he sent 4 warrants to take me. Therefore friends were desirous that I might not ride through Cork. But being at Bandon, there appeared to me in a vision a very ugly-visaged man of a black and dark look. My spirit struck at him in the power of God, and it seemed to me that I rode over him with my horse, and my horse set his foot on the side of his face. When I came down in the morning, I told a friend the command of the Lord was to me to ride through Cork, but bid him tell no man. So we took horse, many friends being with me. When we came near the town, friends would have showed me a way on the back side of it, but I told them my way was through the streets. Taking Paul Morris to guide me through the town, I rode on. As we rode through the marketplace and by the mayor's door, he, seeing me, said, "There goes George Fox." But he had no power to stop me. When we had passed through the sentinels and were come over the bridge, we went to a friend's house and alighted. There the friends told me what a rage was in the town, and how many warrants were granted to take me. While I was sitting there with friends, I felt the evil spirit at work in the town, stirring up mischief against me, and I felt the power of the Lord to strike at that evil spirit. By and by, some other friends coming in told me it was over the town and amongst the magistrates that I was in the town. I said, "Let the devil do his worst." After a while, the friends were refreshed one in another, and we who were travelers had refreshed ourselves. I called for my horse, and having a friend to guide me, we went on our way. But great was the rage that the mayor and others of Cork were in, that they had missed me, and great pains they afterwards took to have taken me, having their scouts abroad upon the roads, as I understood, to observe which way I went. Afterwards, scarce a public meeting I came to, but spies came to watch if I was there. And the envious magistrates and priests sent informations one to another concerning me, describing me by my hair, hat, clothes, and horse, so that when I was near 100 miles from Cork, they had an account concerning me and a description of me before I came amongst them. One very envious magistrate, who was both a priest and a justice, got a warrant from the judge of assize to apprehend me. The warrant was to go over all his circuit, which reached near 100 miles. Yet the Lord disappointed all their counsels, defeated all their designs against me, and by his good hand of providence preserved me out of all their snares, and gave us many sweet and blessed opportunities to visit friends and spread truth through that nation. For meetings were very large, friends coming to them from far and near, and other people flocking in. The powerful presence of the Lord was preciously felt with and amongst us, whereby many of the world were reached and convinced, gathered to the truth, and the Lord's flock was increased, and friends were greatly refreshed and comforted in feeling the love of God. Oh, the brokenness that was amongst them in the flowings of life, so that in the power and the Spirit of the Lord, many together have broken out into singing, even with audible voices, making melody in their hearts. At which time I was moved to declare to friends there in the ministry as followeth. Sound, sound abroad, you faithful servants of the Lord, witnesses in his name, faithful servants, prophets of the highest, and angels of the Lord. Sound you all abroad in the world to the awakening and raising of the dead, that they may be awakened and raised up out of the grave to hear the voice that is living. For the dead have long heard the dead, and the blind have long wandered among the blind, and the deaf amongst the deaf. Therefore, sound, sound, ye servants, prophets, and angels of the Lord, ye trumpets of the Lord, that you may awaken the dead, awaken them that are asleep in their graves of sin, death, and hell, sea and earth, and who lie in the tombs. Sound, sound abroad, you trumpets, and raise up the dead, that the dead may hear the voice of the Son of God, the voice of the second Adam that never fell, the voice of the light, the voice of the life, the voice of the power, the voice of the truth, the voice of the righteousness, and the voice of the just. Sound, sound the pleasant and melodious sound. Sound, sound ye the trumpets, the melodious sound abroad, that all the deaf ears may be opened to hear the pleasant sound of the trumpet, to judgment and life, to condemnation and light. Sound, sound your trumpets all abroad, you angels of the Lord, sons and daughters, prophets of the highest, that all that are dead and asleep in the graves, who have been long dreaming and slumbering, may be awakened and hear the voice of the Lamb, who have long heard the voice of the beast, that now they may hear the voice of the bridegroom, the voice of the bride, the voice of the great prophet, the voice of the great king, the voice of the great shepherd and bishop of their souls. Sound, sound it all abroad, you trumpets, among the dead in Adam, for Christ is come, the second Adam, that they might have life, yea, have it abundantly. Awaken the dead, awaken the slumberers, awaken the dreamers, awaken them that are asleep, awaken them out of their graves, out of their tombs, out of their sepulchres, out of the seas. Sound, sound abroad, you trumpets that awaken the dead, that they may all hear the sound of it in the graves, and they that hear may live and come to the life that is the Son of God. He is risen from the dead. The grave could not hold nor contain him, neither could all the watchers of the earth with all their guards keep him therein. Sound, sound, ye trumpets of the Lord, to all the seekers of the living among the dead, that he is risen from the dead. To all the seekers of the living among the dead and in the graves that the watchers keep, he is not in the grave, he is risen. And there is that under the grave of the watchers of the outward grave, which must be awakened and come to hear his voice, who is risen from the dead, that they might come to live. Therefore, sound abroad, you trumpets of the Lord, that the grave might give up her dead, and hell and the sea might give up their dead, and all might come forth to the judgment of the Lord before his throne, and have their sentence and reward according to their works. Away with all the chaff and the husks and contentions and strife, that the swine feed upon in the mire and in the fall, and the keepers of them of Adam and Eve's house in the fall, that lies in the mire, out of light and life. George Fox. That's where I'm going to stop.
Only life can produce life. Only life can keep us in the purity of life. Intellectual ideas cannot keep us. Intellectual doctrines cannot keep us. That which comes from the first birth, the intellect, the letter of the intellect, that is not under subjection to the second birth, is dead and produces death. But when we are in the truth and from the truth and walking in the truth, that produces life. All are like sheep gone astray into their own way, their own thinking, their own governance.
I don't know what happens next, but I can see that this great hymn at the end of the reading, how it may have evolved out of a change that's come upon people, that so much of the time in the earlier chapters, there was so much persecution. And there's still the mayor of Brandon and Colonel Kirby, but it seems as though the hearts of people in power have really begun to change. And the beatings and the imprisonment. At least right now, there's a relief from that. And so he can joyfully call for the sound of trumpets.
Looking particularly at those first few lines of that last portion. It begins, sound abroad. The purpose Fox lays out, that we're sounding to awaken and raise the dead. And he states the condition: the dead have long heard the dead, the blind have wandered among the blind, the deaf amongst the deaf. So Fox is urging the people involved in the ministry not only to be aware of their commission, but urging them to be faithful in executing that commission. Urging them to be conscious of what it is that the Lord has laid on them, which is a message of life, opening of eyes, opening of ears. And it's no coincidence that Fox brings this to the conclusion that we are calling people to the judgment, because there is no restoration of the life without passing through the judgment of the Lord, who tries our hearts. How is it that Matthew puts it, that he will burn the chaff with unquenchable fire and gather the wheat into the garner? This is the separation, the judgment of that which is true and that which is false. Pretension has to be done away with. And it's a call to come into the presence of the Son of God who has risen from life. Hebrews somewhere states that it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. This is a call to come into the hands of the living God, whose word is sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing the joints, able to discern our very thoughts and intentions. This is I find a very powerful exhortation.
We thank the Lord for his goodness and his mercies and all that he keeps on doing. Taking from what has been read and what has been said, I had this question in mind some time ago. I was asking myself, why did George Fox have his journal? For what purpose and for what reason was he writing it? Because looking at it, it was like a depiction of a story, someone narrating it, something that occurred, and try to analyze it properly. It had no reason or intended purpose phonologically. But I came to realize there was a reason why he wrote that journal. And the reason being, it was for a intended purpose, which was maybe for a future generation beyond this time. And I believe he knew that this journal would serve as a picture in the future so that people may realize when they look at it of the goodness and the mercy of God and how God wants them to believe and follow his path. So same applies with Daniel. In the time of Jews, when the Israelites were enslaved in Babylon, Daniel had read from the book of Jeremiah, where Jeremiah had wrote some time past, a long time ago before Daniel, that a time would come when the children of Israel will be liberated from the powers of the Babylonians. And at that time, when Daniel read that, he realized that it was the time the Lord had appointed that his people should be liberated from the powers of the Babylonians. And he went on a period of 21 days of fasting and prayer. And the Lord answered him. I believe, too, in our time, even as we look at what George did right, it shows us of what the Lord intends to be done in this time. Even when you look at the commissioning of George Fox ministry, it's almost like when I was telling Paul to go and preach. The same similar lines and similar ways where always and bring them to light, take them from forms without power and bring them to the power, take them from being slaves to sin and let them be slaves to righteousness. It's almost the same thing as Paul's commission. Live with that dispensation. George also had this in mind to show us that every believer could do what he did, and that's the path that we should follow. Even as we read this saying that all prophets, all servants of God, all the children of God have been called. Sound alarm, sound an alarm. Let them all hear what the Lord intends to do. Let the day of the Lord be made known. And you see that that's what mostly the Quakers did in the 17th century. Most of them did likewise. They preached the message of God across and beyond borders, live beyond the world's understanding, opposite with the world. And that's like following Jesus, which is, when you look at the world today, it's not something that can be normalized or be understood. but it's something that we need to try on a daily basis to live by, follow Christ, because in as much as George Fox did what he did, I believe the same God was with him, he can be with us today. Just as you said that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's just a matter of faith. And a matter of faith, with faith, all things are possible. Thank you. Yeah.
I want to thank Martin for his powerful witness, which really uplifted my heart, because listening to Ellis read these passages, and particularly what Madeline called the hymn, this section at the end, in which he just, it seems like he's just raising up into the air as he says these things, as he writes these things. I just was feeling that I don't know. I know very few people who are called Quakers today who would resonate with any of this. And it was feeling very heavy, very weighty to my heart as to this situation and what to do. And I know that I need to wait, that we need to wait until the Spirit moves us, because we can come up with a lot of what we think are good ideas, which are not coming from the Spirit, or are not, they don't have the power of the Spirit behind them. And Martin's testimony was just so powerful to me that I'm looking in the wrong direction. I need to look toward the power of Christ, and not where I don't see it, and feeling smothered by the heaviness of where people called Quakers have come to.
Reminded once again of Fox's powerful use of metaphor. And when he's speaking about our blindness and our deafness and our being in the grave, in death, he's not talking primarily, I don't think, to people who are physically blind and deaf and dead. He's talking to me, to us, about our own deafness, our unwillingness to hear, our blindness, our unwillingness to see, our death. He wants to bring us to clear seeing and clear hearing and real life. I'm reminded of the time that, and I don't remember which gospel this is in, but a man came to Jesus to be healed, or Jesus came to him, I'm not sure. But Jesus' question to the man was, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? And that's the question that's raised for me in this reading. Do I want to see? Do I want to hear? Do I want to be raised from the dead and into life? It's a choice. And Fox is amazingly charismatic at confronting us with this choice. And I don't know how we get confronted with these choices today, other than to look to the journal, look to the Bible, look to friends who seem to hear and see and are alive. One final thought that occurred to me, sometimes it seems like we like to wallow in our victimhood. You know, if you can't see or you can't hear or you feel like you're dead, sometimes we just like that. We like being a victim. We get pity, and sometimes we feel powerful as victims.
Mm. I believe God has the power to call things that are not as though they are. And looking at the narration that we have just from reading, you see that living in a dispensation like George Fox, it was a great opportunity and a great privilege that those who lived that time were really blessed and favored. And I would like the same to happen for this dispensation. And I know that the Lord cannot let us remain in darkness. From the time of the apostles up to the time of the early Quakers, it was about 1,000 years. And from that time to this time, it's about 400 years. And I know that the Lord at his own appointed time, he always brings things to pass that he says he will do. And looking at this time, the Lord is ready to spirit upon the earth. Maybe he has done it already, but I know the Lord is willing to let his spirit loose and fall upon the peoples of this world. Only if we as a people can only realize who we are and where we belong. Because looking at what George did and everything that he talked about, it was like he understood that he wasn't a person of this world. He was not a man built for this world. Instead, he came to prove the world wrong and say, I'm made beyond this. I'm a man who's created in the image of God. I won't fall for anything that's below the standard that the Lord has set for me. And this is what the Lord Jesus Christ also said. He said, those who need to follow me should take up their cross and follow me every day, which is against every human nature, because inherent the human nature is selfish and it will always be seeking its own self-desire, which is why the Bible also says that those who are led by the Lord will be led by the Spirit of the Lord and not by the flesh. And looking at the weakness which is in the flesh is what gives power to the world, because the pride of life is found in the flesh, the lust of the eyes is found in the flesh, the lust that is in the flesh is what brings men to doom. And living away from the works of the flesh, we begin to glorify the Lord. There is a great book that William Penn wrote, which is called Cross No Crown. In that book, he explains about what it takes to live a self-denying life in order to please God. He talks about denying almost everything that the earth offers as legitimate things that we need to live by, starting with food, clothing, the ways we speak, the works we do, even like the fashions, the designing, even things as like nobility, everything. He talks about those things as being going to the kingdom of God. And those are not the things that you read regularly or come across on a regular day, because the world won't like to bring those things openly. Instead, they'll be hidden and will not be known. Hence, people remain in ignorant. And we will always remain blinded if we do not know the truth. And this is the truth that George Fox has kept on speaking. And with this truth, George Fox said, I'm not the truth, but I'm showing the truth that it lies within you. The truth is in you. You live with it, and you can only obey it in order for you to be transformed and go into the kingdom of his own son. Because Fox talks about the light so many times. And this light, it says, is not the light that you see in the sky. It's not the light that you see elsewhere. This is the light that is found in every man's heart. The light that will tell you when you do wrong, the light which will tell you to do right, and the light which will draw you closer to Jesus Christ. And he says every man will be judged by the Lord and no man else, because the Lord has come to teach his people himself. The Lord Jesus Christ is teaching people himself and no man else. There's no mediator between God and man except the Lord Jesus Christ. Even George Fox says, I'm not here to mediate, but I'm here to show you the light, which is Jesus Christ. I believe even in this time, there are many people out there who are unable to hear or learn from what George Fox was saying. These people cannot know about this in any way because of the situation or the circumstances that they are in. They may end up living ignorantly like that, maybe up to the ends of their lives. But he talks about a people rising up. He's saying, let those who need to sound this message go abroad and sound this message. Let them go on the mountain hills and sound this message so that this message can be heard. Do not let this message be hidden. And that's Jesus Christ's greatest commission when he told his disciples that go here into all the world and tell these people about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's what the Lord is talking about even today, because what is morally spoken about these days is not about the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's many things, the things of this world. You hear mostly everywhere, radio, TV, magazines, news, people are talking about the things of this world, and less are we knowing more about Jesus Christ. And when we go like that, sin will be going on top and sin will be multiplying. Just like when George Fox visited Dublin, he says, I smelled a wrong air. The air was not conducive. I couldn't smell it because of the corruptions that were in that land. At that point, the Lord took him so that he could fight that corruption that was in that land with his word and the message that the Lord had offered him. And I believe, as well as we are living in this dispensation, the Lord has also a place for each one of us where there is corruption, there is darkness, and these people will need to hear the message of God. But it's up to each individual who's ready
We lost Marvin in the middle of what he was saying. I'm reminded of thoughts that I had before the meeting began, and they did not stay with me, but have now come back. And the picture is the incident recorded of Adam and Eve in the garden, who, having disobeyed God, find themselves naked. And that nakedness consists of not being clothed with the life of God. And what do? They start sewing fig leaves. At least that's the popular presentation. I don't know that it was fig leaves, but and I'm reminded of Edward Burrell, who in this same vein that Fox is talking about, he says, we looked abroad and behold, the world was clothed with fig leaves. The juxtaposition here is clothed with life or clothed with fig leaves which crumble and disintegrate and do not take care of the problem of being destitute of life. Fig leaves are there to present a picture, an outward picture, not to really deal with the problem, the internal problem. So all of this last part that Fox wrote here, in my mind, is a call to abandon the fig leaves. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 1, always catches my attention. Woe to the rebellious children who take counsel, but not from me, who clothe themselves, but not with my breath. That creational breath that made man and woman living beings. That's what we're called to. That's what Fox is calling people to be involved in that process.
Thank you for bringing that up, because as I was listening to Marvin, and I wish I were so eloquent, as much as the lusts are a problem, the pride is at least as big a problem in my life, in my experience anyway.